Hey guys, what's up? Welcome to my first YouTube video. Today we're going to be learning how to draw Batman. I'm starting with the sketch with a Staedtler drafting pencil, and I believe it's 2mm HB lead. This is kind of nice and light just to start your sketch with, and we're going to start with a basic circle just to start out the head with. I like to start with the head because just gives a good starting point for the whole drawing. Unless you're doing kind of like an intricate pose, then you can start with a gesture line, which we'll go through in another video. So you can just split the circle in half. That gives you your brow line, and then the rest of the face can be divided into 3 parts. You're going to split it into thirds for the brow line, the nose line, and the chin line. And that's going to give you your basic setup for the whole face. Now you can go in, I'm just adding the neck here. Not sure exactly where I want it to be yet. So we're just going to keep going in, laying out all the rough parts of the drawing. That's why this lead is so nice, because it's pretty light, so you can not really worry about being too dark with your lines, and you can just keep it super loose and sketchy. So I'm just going in now and adding the torso, which, depending on what angle you're drawing the torso from, it really looks different, but here I'm just doing a basic side angle. Blocking in the shoulder here, and I'm going to add some of the muscles for the arm here. Here you can see a brief pause while I look up a reference for arm muscles, because I still need to study that. So now you can start pulling in your arm muscles, and I'm just going to lightly mark kind of where each muscle will be right now, and we'll add details later. So just blocking in the bicep muscle here, the tricep, got the deltoid at the top. Now I'm just going and adding the forearm. Adding the cape is something that's kind of hard for me to do. You gotta really think about how the fabric is being affected by the wind, lighting, and how it's gonna sit and fall on his body. And that's affected by the muscles and body structure. So now I'm just going in and adding the logo, and I'm kind of just thickening the lines where I want the edges of his body to be. Going back up to the head. Here you can start blocking in the shapes of his face. So I'm giving him kind of a heavy brow, adding his nose. I usually give Batman kind of a smaller nose. I don't know, but if you look at the comics and stuff with Batman, a lot of the time he has a relatively small nose as compared to other characters like the Joker or even Alfred. So I'm just adding his ears, and I added some neck muscles too. And really at this stage you can just again feel free to keep it really light, really loose, really rough. Just adding his eye. He's kind of always got this permanent frown on his face, so I like to give him a heavy brow, intense eyes. Here I'm just going in and adding some more muscles. So we got the abs, the obliques, and the rib cage, and we're just adding those in here. And again, just cleaning stuff up a little bit now. So when you're drawing Batman, you can use lots of reference too. I usually use other comic book artists like Jim Lee. I really like Greg Capullo right now. Right now I'm just going over the lines with more of a confident, darker line. I'm using a Graph Gear 1000 with HB lead. I ordered some H lead, so that should be in soon, and I'm gonna try and draw with that. I think we'll see how that goes, but I like to just draw when I go over my drawings with one kind of uniform kind of lead, because it lets me think about how, if you're inking the drawing, what that would be like if you, because you only have one color, black of ink, usually for comic book artists. So here we're just going in, tightening up the lines a bit, not really adding a lot of detail yet. Usually I kind of add detail and shading and stuff like that kind of at the same time as I'm tightening up my lines, but for the purposes of this video, I'm going to do it later. So right now I'm just kind of going back along the basic sketch and the outline and just really going over those lines and cleaning them up, adding kind of different line weights and really just finalizing where everything's going to be. Giving him the classic Batman pout. Okay, so now we're just going into the face, cleaning everything up. Not adding too much detail at this stage, and just kind of marking where his cheekbone is, adding a little bit of volume there, but we'll go in later with shadows and everything. Just adding a couple different kind of varieties of line weight to give the drawing a little more, just to make it a little more interesting, and ultimately to give it more volume to make it look better. Just outlining the cape. Again, this pencil is HB lead, so it's dark, but it's not super dark. And I like it because it gives a very uniform look, just keeps it nice throughout the drawing. And I know I said the drafting pencil was HB lead as well. I think I said that. But it might actually be lighter lead, because that drafting pencil draws very lightly, which is really nice for the sketches, so I'm sure I'll have to double check. So we're just outlining the logo here. I marked it with some X's. I don't know, just to remind myself to color it black, which probably don't need to do. I don't know, it's a weird habit. I'm just going in here with the muscles, the abs, and here I just added a light source. It's coming from the left or in front of him, as you can kind of tell, and I just kind of added some shadows. Now the areas where the light is hitting are going to be brighter. Areas that are not being hit with the light are going to be cast in shadow. You also have to think about how the light affects like different areas that are going to be cast in shadow. For example, I added some shadow under his chin, which is the overhang of his face. I also added a lot of shadow on the back of his arm, just because the cape as well is casting a bit of a shadow there. Just adding some more shadow kind of under his eye and defining his cheekbone a bit more here. I'm not really adding rendering yet at this point, or a lot of detail. I'm mostly just blocking in the shadows and touching up a few places. Now I believe I'm adding a bit of stubble to him. I don't know, I really like drawing a stubbled Batman, partly because it lets you like really add some volume to his face and his chin in a different way other than rendering it and adding a ton of detail. Plus I really enjoy drawing kind of a grizzled, rough-looking Batman. It's just a lot of fun. So for the shading, this is just kind of how I approach it. Picture at the far left of the spectrum, you have complete black. And you can kind of crosshatch that as you transition from black to white. So the less lines you use, the more further from black it goes and closer to white. Basically use cross-hatching to establish your grays. Makes it a lot easier if someone's inking over the drawing. So here I'm just going in and rendering now, adding a little more detail and depth to his cape. Also adding a bit of texture. I like to add some grizzly lines, kind of like Capullo does in his work. I don't know if I'm saying his name right, I hope so. But yeah, I'm just going in, touching everything up, adding a little more detail, a couple more folds. Adding some more shadows to the folds, just to make it look a little more three-dimensional. A little more like it's folding and resting over top of his arm. Again, the back of it is cast in deep shadow, so it's further from the light source. Just adding a little more detail here. I like to use a lot of lines. I don't know. It's fun. Here, just rendering it out, transitioning the black parts into the white. So it's not such an abrupt change from the shadows to the unshadowed parts. There's a lot of different ways you can render. If you look at different comic book artists, you can see a lot of them do it differently. Like, if you take someone like David Finch, compare it with Capullo or even Jim Lee, you can see their rendering styles are very different, and it's basically up to you kind of what style you want to take and create your own, mix and match. Whatever you feel comfortable with, whatever you like best, or your own personal preference. Here I'm just going in, kind of defining the muscles a bit more, the obliques on the side here. These are also heavily stylized. I don't know. You have to study anatomy a lot. I need to do that still a bit more. Anatomy's hard. Here I'm just rendering this out a bit more too. Transitioning it so it's not just kind of a big heavy black line in the middle of his torso. Adding a bit more texture. This is kind of the funnest part. You can kind of just play around with it and have fun rendering it out, adding more detail, adding some texture. Maybe put some rips in his costume. Really whatever you want. And have fun with it. It's my favorite part of the process. Here I'm just adding a little more detail to his costume, kind of where it's like buckling or folding a little bit, where his abs are. Some artists draw the abs really detailed and really shadow them in there and make them pop. Other artists sometimes don't draw them in as much, they're a little more subtle. It's really up to you. So there you have it, a finished Batman drawing. I hope this was helpful. Thanks for watching, and see you in my next video.